Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Sheikh coming up in the next hour. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi to hold bilateral talks with New Zealand PM Christopher Luxon in New Delhi. Issues of mutual interest including trade and defence cooperation to be discussed. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to inaugurate India's flagship conference on geopolitics and geoeconomics, the Raisina Dialogue. New Zealand PM Luxon to deliver keynote address. Ahead of Trump-Putin talks, Russia seeks NATO exclusion in peace treaty, says Ukraine must be neutral, rules out NATO membership for Kiev. US deports hundreds of alleged Venezuelan gang members under Alien Enemies Act to El Salvador prison despite court block. Tornadoes and violent storms raked across the central United States, 36 dead and thousands left without power. And Indian movies reign supreme at Asian Film Awards. All We Imagine as Light is the best film. Shahana Goswami bags Best Actress Award, while Sandhya Suri gets Best New Director Award for Santosh. All right, news in detail now. New Zealand Prime Minister Christopher Luxon, who arrived in India on Sunday, will hold talks with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Monday, covering various aspects of India-New Zealand relations. Prime Minister Modi will host a lunch in honour of the visiting dignitary. The visiting minister is also scheduled to meet President Draupadi Murmu. Luxon will attend the inaugural session of the Raisina Dialogue as the chief guest and deliver the keynote address. Prime Minister Luxon is scheduled to visit Mumbai on 19 March, where he'll have interactions with Indian business leaders and representatives from various walks of life. The visit of Prime Minister Luxon underscores the long-standing and enduring ties between India and New Zealand. It reaffirms the continued commitment of both countries to further strengthen the bilateral relationship across all sectors and deepen close people-to-people ties. And before kicking off the events in New Delhi and Mumbai, the visiting New Zealand Prime Minister Christopher Luxon shared the pictures of him meeting the Indian community members. On social media platform X, he wrote, and I quote, "The Indian community is the third largest ethnic group in New Zealand. India is our largest source of skilled migrants and our second largest source of international students. In short, Indian Kiwis make a massive contribution to New Zealand, and I'm proud of what this community does for our country. I've brought along a senior delegation of community and business leaders here to India, the largest ever group to accompany a New Zealand PM on a foreign trip. It was great to catch up with them after our arrival and before we kick off our events in Delhi and Mumbai," unquote. And in the spirit of deepening economic cooperation, India and New Zealand have revived long-stalled free trade negotiations. This significant step was marked by a meeting of India's Minister for Commerce and Industry Piyush Goyal with his New Zealand counterpart, laying the foundation of a momentous partnership towards strengthening the economic and trade ties between the two countries. The India-New Zealand FTA negotiations aim to achieve balanced outcomes that enhance supply chain integration and improve market access. This milestone reflects a shared vision for a stronger economic partnership, fostering resilience and prosperity. With bilateral ties between India and New Zealand continuing to grow steadily, aim to unlock new avenues, fostering mutual growth and prosperity, let's take a look at this special partnership between the two countries. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will inaugurate the Raisina Dialogue, India's flagship conference on geopolitics and geoeconomics, on 17th of March. The 10th edition of the Raisina Dialogue will be held from 17th to 19th March in New Delhi. Prime Minister of New Zealand, Christopher Luxon, will join the inaugural session as a chief guest and deliver the keynote address. The 10th Raisina Dialogue will witness participation of representatives from about 125 countries, including ministers, former heads of state and heads of government, military commanders, captains of industry, technology leaders, academics, journalists, among others. Over the course, decision makers and thought leaders of the world will engage each other across conversation in various formats over 6 thematic pillars. The theme of the 2025 edition is Kal Chakra, People, Peace and Planet. Over 3,500 participants from about 125 countries will be joining the dialogue in person. And Prime Minister Modi has stressed that India is not neutral but firmly committed to peace. In a podcast interview with AI researcher and US-based podcaster Lex Fridman, PM Modi emphasized that the world listens whenever India speaks of peace because it is the land of Gautam Buddha and Mahatma Gandhi. Referring to Russia-Ukraine conflict, PM Modi said India has close ties with both countries. He also said that India is not neutral in the conflict while reiterating that it stands with peace.
वॉर चल रहा है। अब ये कोई आइडियोलॉजी नहीं है। आइडियोलॉजी ऐसी थोड़ी होती है, लोगों को मारो काटो, टेररिस्टों को एक्सपोर्ट करने का काम चल रहा है। और सिर्फ हमारे साथ ही नहीं, अब दुनिया में कहीं पर भी टेररिस्ट की घटना घटती है तो कहीं न कहीं सूत्र पाकिस्तान जाकर के अटकते हैं। अब देखिए 9/11 इतनी बड़ी घटना घटी अमेरिका में, उसका मेन जो सूत्रधार था ओसामा बिन लादेन, वो आखिर में कहां से मिला? पाकिस्तान में ही शरण लेके बैठा था। तो दुनिया पहचान गई है कि ये प्रकार से आतंकवादी प्रवृत्ति, आतंकवादी मानसिकता, और वो सिर्फ भारत ही नहीं, दुनिया भर के लिए परेशानी का केंद्र बन चुका है। और हम लगातार उनको कहते रहे हैं कि इस रास्ते से किसका भला होगा? आप आतंकवाद के रास्ते को छोड़ दीजिए, ये स्टेट स्पॉन्सर्ड टेररिज्म जो है वो बंद होना चाहिए। नॉन स्टेट एक्टरों के हाथ में सब छोड़ दिया है, क्या होगा फायदा? और इसकी शांति के प्रयासों के लिए मैं खुद लाहौर चला गया था। मेरे प्रधानमंत्री बनने के बाद मैंने मेरे शपथ समारोह में पाकिस्तान को स्पेशली इनवाइट किया था ताकि एक शुभ शुरुआत हो, लेकिन हर बार हर अच्छे प्रयासों का परिणाम नकारात्मक निकला।
He said Indians espouse harmony and stand for peace. Prime Minister Modi also highlighted the current geopolitical scenario around the world, addressing issues such as Pakistan's state-sponsored terrorism, India-China relationship and Russia-Ukraine conflict. While speaking about Pakistan, PM Modi stated that every attempt by India to foster peace was met with hostility and betrayal.
2020 में जो सीमा पर जो घटनाएं घटी, उसके कारण हमारे बीच स्थितियां काफी दूरी की बन गई। लेकिन अभी राष्ट्रपति श्री के साथ मेरा मिलना हुआ, उसके बाद सीमा पर जो चीजें थी उसमें नॉर्मल से आ चुकी हैं। 2020 के पहले की स्थिति में हम लोग अब काम कर रहे हैं। अब धीरे धीरे वो विश्वास और वो उत्साह और उमंग और ऊर्जा वापिस आ जाए, वो उसको एक थोड़ा समय लगेगा कि बीच में 5 साल का अंतराल गया है। हमारा साथ होना ना सिर्फ बेनिफिशियल है बल्कि ग्लोबल स्टेबिलिटी और प्रॉस्पेरिटी के लिए भी जरूरी है। और जब 21वीं सदी एशिया की सदी है तो हम तो चाहेंगे कि भारत चीन के बीच में स्पर्धा सब स्वाभाविक है, स्पर्धा कोई गलत चीज नहीं है, ये संघर्ष नहीं होना चाहिए।
Prime Minister Modi emphasized the importance of strengthening ties between India and China. Despite past tensions, he advocated for dialogue over discord and cooperation over conflict as the way forward.
मेरा रशिया के साथ भी घनिष्ठ संबंध है, यूक्रेन के साथ भी घनिष्ठ संबंध है। मैं राष्ट्रपति पुतिन के सामने बैठ करके मीडिया को कह सकता हूं कि युद्ध का समय नहीं है। और मैं जेलेंस्की को भी एक मित्र भाव से उनको भी कहता हूं कि भाई दुनिया कितनी ही आपके साथ खड़ी क्यों न हो जाए, युद्ध भूमि में कभी भी परिणाम नहीं निकलने वाला है। परिणाम तो टेबल पर ही निकलने वाला है, और टेबल पे परिणाम तब निकलेगा जब उस टेबल पर यूक्रेन और रशिया दोनों मौजूद होंगे। पूरी दुनिया यूक्रेन के साथ बैठ करके कितनी माथापच्ची कर ले, उसे परिणाम नहीं आता है। दोनों पक्षों का होना जरूरी है। और शुरू में समझा नहीं पा रहा था, लेकिन आज जो इस प्रकार का वातावरण बना है, उससे मुझे लगता है कि अब रशिया, यूक्रेन, मैं आशावादी हूं कि बहुत उन्होंने खुद ने तो गंवाया है, दुनिया का बहुत नुकसान हुआ है। ग्लोबल साउथ को सबसे ज्यादा नुकसान हुआ है। पूरे विश्व में फूड, फ्यूल एंड फर्टिलाइजर, उसका संकट रहा है। तो पूरा विश्व चाहता है जल्दी से जल्दी शांति हो, और मैं हमेशा कहता हूं मैं शांति के पक्ष में हूं। मैं न्यूट्रल नहीं हूं, मैं शांति के पक्ष, मेरा एक पक्ष है और मैं उसके लिए प्रयत्नरत हूं।
And PM Modi also outlined India's ambitions in artificial intelligence, the global rise of Indian talent and the irreplaceable role of human intelligence in shaping technology.
आप शायद ज्यादा लगेगी और हो सकता है किसी को बुरा भी लगे, लेकिन जब आपने पूछा है तो अभी मेरे मन में से निकल रहा है, मैं कहना चाहता हूं। दुनिया एआई के लिए कुछ भी कर ले, भारत के बिना एआई अधूरा है। बहुत जिम्मेवार स्टेटमेंट मैं कर रहा हूं। मुझे लगता है देखिए, एआई डेवलपमेंट एक कोलैबोरेशन है। यहां हर कोई एक दूसरे को अपने एक्सपीरियंस और लर्निंग से सपोर्ट कर सकता है, और इंडिया सिर्फ इसका मॉडल नहीं बना रहा, बल्कि स्पेसिफिक यूज केसेस से के हिसाब से एआई बेस्ड एप्लीकेशंस को भी डेवलप कर रहा है।
All right, moving further, the budget session of Indian Parliament will resume today with both the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha set to meet. According to the list of business, the Lok Sabha will reconvene at 11 a.m. Indian Standard Time to take up key legislative matters, including the presentation and discussion of multiple reports from standing committees. Union Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan will move a motion for the election of 2 members to the Court of the University of Delhi. The session will also take up the discussion and voting on the demand for grants under the Ministry of Railways for 2025-26. The second part of the budget session of the Parliament will continue till April 4. All right, still to come on this edition of DD India News Hour. Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov urges US to cease airstrikes against Yemen Houthis in phone call with Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Netanyahu seeking to dismiss head of Israel's internal security agency amid tensions over security and allegations of media leaks. And Bangladesh remembers Sheikh Mujibur Rahman on his birth anniversary amidst growing controversies over his legacy.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Sheikh. Updates on Russia-Ukraine conflict. Now, Russia has underscored its demand that Ukraine be excluded from NATO membership and maintain a neutral stance in any prospective peace agreement. Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Alexander Grushko in a statement emphasized the importance of including stringent security guarantees in peace accord. Grushko detailed that Russia expects these guarantees to ensure Ukraine's neutral status and prevent NATO countries from integrating it into their alliance, seeking robust assurances as part of the diplomatic negotiations. The Deputy Foreign Minister's statements were published by Russian media outlet Izvestia, reflecting Russia's firm position on Ukraine's geopolitical alignment and the broader security dynamics in the region. And US President Donald Trump is expected to speak with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin this week on ways to end the three-year conflict in Ukraine. US envoy Steve Witkoff told a US news agency on Sunday after returning from what he described as a positive meeting with Putin in Moscow. All right, let's go across to DD India. Shubhendu Ghosh is joining us live from the newsroom. Good morning, Shubhendu. US President Donald Trump and Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin are expected to speak this week. Some headway expected. Where is the conflict heading?
That's right. Good morning, Abhishek. Well, the positive momentum achieved last week as far as the potential 30-day ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine is concerned. It is likely that the much-awaited direct talks between President Putin of Russia and President Trump of the United States could happen sooner than later. It is widely expected that it could take place sometime this week. Remember a quick recap, the important developments that happened last week. Donald Trump's 30-day peace proposal, the highlight of which is unconditional and immediate ceasefire. The meeting with the Ukrainian leadership in Jeddah in Saudi Arabia, Ukraine agreed to that ceasefire plan, which was then taken by Steve Witkoff, the American envoy, to Moscow, where he sat across the table with President Putin and his team, and there President Trump says that important headways were made. President Putin did say that in principle Russia agrees to the idea of ceasefire, that peace is important, but he did flag some important concerns, nuances. The immediate concerns were about the fighting that is happening in Kursk. President Putin asked if this would give an opportunity, this 30-day window would give an opportunity to Ukrainian president to retreat, regroup and rearm. What are the security guarantees that will happen in the 2,000-kilometer long borderline? The fighting in Kursk, which is going on still, it was a region in western Russia where Ukraine had made important headway last year. But Russia has, till Sunday, made important inroads and reclaimed most of the regions back. In that sense, the brutal fighting continues, but there is hope on the horizon for Russia and Ukraine to come to some sort of a ceasefire deal. But we have to understand if the Ukrainian and Russian conditions are going to be met going forward.
But Shubhendu, United States proposed a halt in fighting in the conflict after talks in Saudi Arabia, with Kiev accepting the proposal. In fact, Russia has conditions underscoring its demand that Ukraine be excluded from NATO membership, and that's not his only condition.
That's right, Abhishek. We have to look at the realities of this conflict. It is not a conflict between two equal adversaries, especially not after US has made clear its sort of new geopolitical affiliations. Ukraine is on the back foot, not just because the manner in which President Trump looks at Ukraine's role in this conflict, but also that the recent developments in the battleground has been in the favor of Russia. In that sense, although Ukrainian leadership has accepted the unconditional immediate proposal for ceasefire, the Russian leadership, as I mentioned, President Putin first raised the immediate concerns of what could the ceasefire imply. But we also heard from Alexander Krushko, the Deputy Foreign Minister of Russia, who's laid out the broader conditions for a long-term ceasefire and peace even more clearly. One factor, as you mentioned, that sort of stands out is that under no condition in the future should Ukraine be made available as a member of NATO. That is the starting point, that the NATO members must also not allow Ukraine to come into the grouping. Second, Russia does not want any armed peacekeeping troops, especially from the NATO countries. They've made it very clear. Any presence of observers could be unarmed observers, civilian observers in the region, in Ukraine in particular. And we have to read this in the context of the kind of support from Europe and UK that President Ukraine has been getting. UK and France, remember, had agreed to provide peacekeeping troops in the event of a possible ceasefire. So in that sense, there are certain very important conflicts in position that we can see, but there is a greater push. There is a great deal of exhaustion that both Ukraine and Russia have experienced, and this could be an opportunity for some kind of a truce to come into play.
All right, Shubhendu, we'll leave it at that. Thank you for your time. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on Sunday appointed Major General Andrei Natov as Ukraine's Chief of the General Staff as Kiev seeks to speed up army reform. Speaking during his nightly video address, Zelensky said Natov would be tasked with making Ukrainian troops more combat ready.
I made personal changes in the armed forces of Ukraine together with Commander-in-Chief Olinder Syrsky and the Ministry of Defense Rustem Umbreu. We decided that the new Chief of the General Staff will be Andrei Natov, a combat guy. His task is to maximize combat experience of our brigades in planning both defensive and offensive operations, as well as to actively develop the COP system.
Zelensky also said he had spoken to Canada's new Prime Minister Mark Carney and discussed sanctions on Russia and the G7 foreign ministers meeting that took place in the remote tourist town of La Malbaie, Canada on Saturday. And Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov called on the United States to halt strikes against Yemen's Houthis during a phone conversation with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio on Saturday. During the phone talks, Rubio informed Lavrov of the U.S. decision to launch a military operation against the Houthi forces in Yemen. Lavrov stressed the need for all parties to immediately cease the use of force and engage in political dialogue so as to find a solution that would prevent further bloodshed. The phone conversation came after U.S. warplanes on Saturday night launched airstrikes on several Houthi sites in Yemen's capital Sana'a and the northern province of Sada. Lavrov and Rubio also discussed specific aspects of implementing the mutual understanding reached at the meeting between senior Russian and U.S. officials in Riyadh on February 18. And Lithuania on Sunday backed a European Union proposal to pledge up to 40 billion euros in military aid for Ukraine this year, with a similar amount needed in the future to deter Russia-Ukraine conflict. Lithuanian Foreign Minister emphasized that sustaining this funding would help Ukraine maintain its military strength. His comments came ahead of an EU Foreign Ministers meeting in Brussels, which will discuss the proposal amid uncertainty over US negotiations with Russia and Washington's future support for Ukraine. Despite some cautious EU responses, the Foreign Minister stressed that Ukraine's military must remain strong regardless of peace talks. Lithuania remains a key ally of Ukraine and a top European defense spender. Now, Syria's interim government will participate in an international aid conference in Brussels aimed at securing crucial support amid ongoing humanitarian and political crisis. The conference, hosted by the EU since 2017, was previously held without Bashar al-Assad due to his brutal actions in the civil war. However, following his fall in December, EU officials see this as a new beginning. Despite concerns over recent violence between Islamist forces and Assad loyalists, the EU remains hopeful, citing a Marshall Agreement to integrate Kurdish-led forces into Syria's future government. With 16.5 million Syrians needing aid, the war's toll and economic collapse have worsened the crisis, making this conference vital for survival. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu seeking to dismiss the head of Israel's internal security agency, who swiftly called the move political, said the premier expected personal loyalty. Netanyahu and Shin Bet head Ronen Bar have been engaged in a public spat in recent weeks over reforms to the agency, which has been accused of failing to prevent the October 7, 2023 Hamas attack that triggered conflict in Gaza. At the same time, the Shin Bet has been conducted an investigation into some of Netanyahu's aides for allegedly receiving payments from Qatar. Previously, Netanyahu has accused Bar of being behind what he called part of an ongoing campaign of threats and media leaks.
I have had an ongoing lack of trust in the head of Shin Bet, a distrust that has only grown over time due to ongoing lack of trust I have decided to bring a proposal to the government to end the tenure of the head of Shin Belt.
17 March marks the birth anniversary of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, the father of nation of Bangladesh. He is remembered in India too with great admiration and for his relentless struggle for independence and his vision of a secular, sovereign Bangladesh. But while the nation should be celebrating his legacy, recent events tell a different story. Let's watch this report by our correspondent Akhilesh Suman.
These are the visuals of desecration of the statue of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman in the garb of a mass movement in 2023. Sheikh Mujibur Rahman did not deserve this. The museum of the man who gave Bangladesh its freedom is also demolished. The nation that should have honored him for generations is witnessing attempts to push his memories and legacy into oblivion.
Today you are seeing the erasure of certain amount of history and a certain amount of revenge being taken on Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, and primarily because in the country today, that is Bangladesh today, power has shifted into the hands of the Islamic radicals.
Born on March 17, 1920, Mujib was the son of a middle-class family. He pursued law and political science at the universities of Calcutta and Dhaka. He actively participated in the freedom struggle against the Bangladesh and was briefly jailed as a teenager. In 1949, he co-founded the Awami League, which became the voice of East Pakistan's demand for autonomy. As a result of his consistent struggle against oppression of East Pakistani people by the Pakistani army in 1970, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman led the Awami League to victory in Pakistan's first general election, but the military junta refused to transfer power. On March 7, 1971, he delivered a speech giving call of independence for East Pakistan and was arrested by Pakistan Army on March 25 for treason. The Pakistan Army also launched Operation Searchlight, unleashing a brutal genocide against Bengalis. This triggered mass protests, shaking the foundations of Pakistan's ruling elite. Mujib was taken to West Pakistan jail in an effort to silence the movement, but his leadership remained central. With the support of India, the people of Bangladesh fought for their liberation, leading to the creation of an independent republic in December 1971. As part of a diplomatic accord with India, Pakistan was forced to release Sheikh Mujib in January 1972. His return to Dhaka was met with euphoric celebrations, and he was sworn in as the first Prime Minister of Bangladesh.
Sheikh Mujibur Rahman basically represents the cultural construct or cultural spirit of Bangladesh, which is based on Bengali nationalism. And basically they are proud of being a Bengali culturally, bilinguistically. And Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, while he was giving leadership to the Bengali people against the Pakistani Islamist construct, he has become a real icon, or you can say he has become the voice of the Bengali people.
Despite his immense popularity, Mujib faced mounting economic and political challenges, exacerbated by sabotage efforts from pro-Pakistani forces. In January 1975, he assumed the presidency, consolidating power to address instability. However, his dream of a progressive Bangladesh was cut short by his assassination, along with most of his family, on August 15, 1975, by Bangladesh army renegades.
Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman was an inspiration not just for Bangladesh, but for the people of entire developing nations, where people were struggling against tyrannical rules. People of Bangladesh and people of entire global south should revere the remembrance of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. Akhilesh Suman's report for DD India in New Delhi.
Still to come on this edition of DD India News Hour. Stranded US astronauts to return to Earth on Tuesday. Vatican releases first image of Pope Francis in hospital. And 59 dead at nightclub fire in North Macedonia.
issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Some more stories. The Trump administration has deported over 200 Venezuelans from the United States to a sprawling prison in El Salvador amid legal and human rights concerns. The deportations on Sunday took place despite a U.S. federal judge granting a temporary suspension of the expulsion order. The White House said in a statement that it wasn't defying the court, but at the same time argued that it was perfectly within its rights to ignore the judge's ruling. White House spokeswoman Caroline Leavitt defended the deportation, saying Trump was using his core powers as president and commander-in-chief to defend the American people from an urgent threat. A federal judge in Washington, D.C. had earlier blocked President Trump's application of the Alien Enemies Act, an 18th century law best known for its use in rounding up U.S. residents of Japanese descent and placing them in internment camps without trial during World War II. Trump had sought to use the act's seldom used wartime powers to rapidly deport alleged members of Tren de Aragua, a Venezuelan gang that has been linked to kidnapping, extortion and contract killings. Once the United States has imposed tariffs on its major trading partners, it could engage in bilateral talks with countries on new trade agreements. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the United States would retaliate against nations that had imposed tariffs on it. U.S. President Trump threatened on Thursday to slap a 200% tariff on wine, cognac and other alcohol imports from Europe, opening a new front in a global trade war that has roiled financial markets and raised recession fears. Rubio, who did not give details of what the new deals could look like, said the United States would reset the baseline to ensure it was treated fairly. Now, the USS Minnesota participated in a training exercise from its home port in Guam on Sunday. It serves as a precursor to the arrival of 4 Virginia-class submarines as part of the AUKUS partnership to enhance Australia's nuclear submarine capabilities. It is set to be stationed at a Western Australian naval base starting in 2027. Approximately 50 to 80 US Navy personnel are expected to arrive at Stirling Base in Western Australia by mid-year. The base is currently undergoing a $5 billion upgrade. In 2 years, those numbers will swell to hundreds of US Navy personnel and support crew. Under AUKUS, Australia will buy 2 used Virginia-class submarines next decade and build a new class of nuclear-powered submarine with Britain to replace its aging diesel-powered fleet. Commanding Officer Jeffrey Cornell says the Virginia-class submarine is the most advanced warship in the world.
This is the most advanced warship in the world. What they gain is the capability to operate a nuclear-powered, conventionally armed warship. The things that this brings to our Navy and to every Navy, that has nuclear-powered warships is significant and allows us to operate with essentially unlimited endurance, just limited by food, and be able to do all of the things that our country asks us to do at any moment, just limited by that one thing of food.
A pair of US astronauts stuck for more than 9 months on the International Space Station will be returned to Earth on Tuesday evening. Bush Wilmore and Sunita Williams are to be transported home with another American astronaut and a Russian cosmonaut aboard a SpaceX Crew Dragon craft, which arrived at the ISS early Sunday. The stranded duo have been on the ISS since June after the Boeing Starliner spacecraft they were testing on its maiden crewed voyage suffered propulsion issues and was deemed unfit to fly them back to Earth. NASA astronaut Nick Hague and Roscosmos cosmonaut Alexander Godunov will also return on the Dragon capsule, with the journey to be broadcast live from Monday evening when hatch closure preparations begin. For Wilmore and Williams, it will mark the end of an ordeal that has seen them stuck for 9 months after what was meant to have been a days-long round trip. In Brazil, thousands of supporters of former President Jair Bolsonaro gather in Rio de Janeiro to demand amnesty for those involved in January 8, 2023 riots. The rally, led by Jair Bolsonaro and attended by governors and far-right figures, aims to pressure Congress to approve pardons for the rioters as Bolsonaro faces charges of attempted coup. Bolsonaro is facing charges of leading a plot to topple the government and undermine the country's democracy after he lost the 2022 election. Charges against the former army captain and several key allies will go before a 5-judge panel at Brazil's Supreme Court on March 25. If judges agree to hear the trial, Bolsonaro and others will become defendants. Bolsonaro and his representatives have denied any wrongdoing. Now, the Vatican on Sunday released the first image of Pope Francis in hospital since the 88-year-old pontiff began treatment for double pneumonia. The Pope was admitted to Rome's Gemelli Hospital on February 14 with a severe respiratory infection that has required evolving treatment. He has not been seen in public since. The Vatican said the Pope had celebrated Mass with other priests in the chapel on Sunday. The Pope had been receiving oxygen throughout his treatment in hospital. People injured in a fire in North Macedonia nightclub that left at least 59 dead were brought to Bulgaria for treatment on Sunday. About 148 people were hospitalized in the capital Skopje, Kokani and surrounding towns, as well as being taken to neighboring countries for treatment. Authorities have arrested about 20 people in connection with the fire in the town of Kokani, including government officials and the manager of the Pulse nightclub. The public prosecutor said authorities had also arrested members of the band and the son of the club owner. The death toll currently stands at 59. And North Macedonia's Prime Minister said an investigation into the nightclub fire had found the club's license was not legitimate. He said the document had been issued illegally by officials from the Economy Ministry and said there were many questions to be answered, promising accountability at all levels.
We have information that at the time of the disaster, the nightclub had a falsified license issued in March 2024 for a bribe. The document was issued illegally with the legal stamp of the Economy Minister and signed by the then officials of the same ministry. There are many questions there that the investigation should answer.
And the leaders of the countries bordering North Macedonia as well as the European Union offered condolences and support to the Balkan state on Sunday after a fire in the nightclub. Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić said the disaster was a tragedy of immense magnitude during a government meeting, while the Prime Ministers of Albania and Kosovo and EU leaders sent condolences in messages on social media X. Some weather updates now. Several violent tornadoes have been ripping through the U.S., leading to at least 36 fatalities after a storm system rapidly progressed across the country. Portions of Pennsylvania, New York and mid-Atlantic and southeast states were still under a National Weather Service watch for damaging wind and tornadoes. In a White House statement, President Trump said he was monitoring the tornadoes and storms, announced the National Guard had been deployed to Arkansas and pledged help to state and local officials. The storms that hit the South and the Midwest headed east on Sunday. Thousands of people had no power in the affected areas as of late afternoon on Sunday. At least 3 people, including an 82-year-old woman, were killed in central Alabama when multiple tornadoes swept across the U.S. state. The state police reported downed trees and power lines as well as damage to buildings, with some areas severely impacted by tornadoes, thunderstorms and large hail. Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders declared a state of emergency in response, allocating $250,000 from the governor's disaster response and recovery fund. 2 ski mountaineers are in critical condition after being struck by an avalanche on Sunday near Forcellazzo in Italian Dolomites. The avalanche, which occurred in the afternoon, involved 3 skiers a fourth skier, unharmed, raised the alarm. A 51-year-old man was quickly freed from the snow and treated for hypothermia and an ankle injury. 2 skiers were swept further downhill in the avalanche, including a 38-year-old man who was found under 2 meters of snow and a 40-year-old woman buried over 3 meters deep, located by a search dog. Both were airlifted to hospital in critical condition. And Greece is riding a weather roller coaster with weekend temperatures spiking to a record high for March, just ahead of a forecast bout of snow and frost. The Athens National Observatory reported record high March temperatures in Greece with 33.7 degrees Celsius in Lassithi, Crete on Sunday and 31.4 degrees Celsius in Livadia, central Greece on Saturday. Other regions also experienced unusually warm temperatures for late winters. A nationwide ban on burning materials in rural areas is in place until March 18 due to wildfires. The heat spike is linked to Saharan dust, and forecasters predict a significant drop in temperatures starting Tuesday. Greece has become a climate change hotspot, having recorded its hottest summer and warmest winter in 2024. A German court resumed a landmark climate case on Monday brought by Peruvian farmer Sol Luciano Liuya, who claimed that emissions from German energy giant RWE have contributed to the melting of Andean glaciers, increasing flood risk to his home. Liuya, backed by the group German Watch, seeks €21,000 from RWE towards a $3.5 million flood defense project. He argues RWE's emissions account for nearly 0.5% of global man-made emissions since the Industrial Revolution and should cover a proportional share of climate adaptation costs. This case could set a significant precedent for holding companies accountable for past emissions. Legal experts are closely watching the case's potential to influence future climate litigation and corporate responsibility for global warming. And parts of Cuba's capital Havana saw power briefly restored, though much of the city and the country remained without electricity on Sunday after a nationwide grid collapse that affected 10 million people. Havana's electric company reported that about 19% of its customers had regained power but did not provide a timeline for full restoration. Cuba's energy ministry confirmed that it had restarted the Felton power plant, a key power facility for restoring power in eastern provinces. While some businesses in Havana relied on generators, others returned to normal as power was restored. The grid failure occurred on the evening of March 14 after a transmission line at a substation in Havana shorted, triggering a complete shutdown of the island's power generation. Now, Thames Water, Britain's biggest water supplier, will find out from a court this week whether a $3.88 billion debt lifeline can proceed as its battle to avoid a state rescue continues. The company is at the centre of a public backlash against the UK water industry. Mismanagement of Thames Water is blamed for sewage pollution in rivers and for an £18 billion debt pile which has left it on the brink of financial collapse. It secured court approval for the new £3 billion loan in February, giving it 2 years to get its finances back in order, but there were appeals from a group of junior creditors and public interest group. The Court of Appeal will announce its decision this week following a 3-day hearing on March 11 to 13. The new debt underpins its finances until May 2026, by which time it needs to restructure its debt and raise new equity. Meanwhile, it is also trying to win the right to charge its customers higher prices for the coming 5 years through a competition appeal. The government of Nepal will host the Sagarmatha Dialogue for the first time, focusing on climate change and its impact. The event, scheduled for May 20th and 21st, will feature discussions on 16 climate-related themes, including climate-induced disasters. Around 450 participants, including heads of states, ministers, scientists, experts and media, are expected to attend. Nepal aims to draw global attention to climate justice through these discussions, with a focus on the effects of climate change from mountains to coastal areas. The dialogue will also explore how climate change preparedness can be integrated into national policies. Nepal has invited leaders from neighboring countries, including India and China, as special guests a steering committee led by Prime Minister K.P. Sharma Oli and a management committee led by Foreign Minister Dr. Arzu Rana Dioba and co-chaired by Minister for Forest and Environment have been formed to organize the event. Even earlier, Prime Minister K.P. Sharma Oli had announced that the organization of the Sagarmatha Dialogue in Kathmandu would coincide with the International Year of Glaciers 2025. Still to come on this edition of DD India News Hour. G7 finance ministers to meet virtually as Canada prepares for leadership role ahead of annual summit. USA floorball team coach Joe Lord's Special Olympic World Winter Games as a remarkable event for special athletes. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Finance ministers from the group of 7 nations are meeting virtually on Monday. It was announced by Canada's new finance minister, Francois Philippe Champagne. This session marks an early step towards the annual G7 summit, with Canada as this year's chair, aiming to demonstrate leadership among global financial leaders. This upcoming session represents an early initiative as they collaborate on preparations for the forthcoming G7 summit to be hosted in Kananaskis, Alberta. Champagne expressed enthusiasm about the opportunity for Canada's leadership, given its role as this year's G7 chair. This assembly will set a foundation for discussions and decisions as the finance ministers address critical global economic issues and strategies. All right, sports updates now. The 12th edition of the Special Olympics Winter Games concluded in Turin, Italy on Sunday. Indian athletes ended their remarkable campaign at the Games with 33 medals, including 8 gold medals. Deepak Natali, regional president of the Asia-Pacific region, praised India's outstanding performance at the Special Olympics World Winter Games. In an exclusive conversation with DD India's Narayan Singh, he lauded the Indian athletes, calling them a true source of inspiration for the world.
Indian special athletes performed a stupendous performance at the World Winter Games in Turin, and right now I am joined by Deepak Natali, who is the president of the Asia Pacific region. Sir, a very warm welcome. An Indian contingent delivering a fantastic performance, winning 29 medals. So how you look this performance of the Indian special athletes?
Well, firstly, I'd like to say it's an absolute honor for India to be here, but so many Asia Pacific countries also with us. For a region, these games have come at a time when we've really needed to see our winter sports calendar come to life again. And seeing the Indian athletes do so well, 29 medals as you've said, it's just absolutely wonderful.
Definitely, and the way the conditions here in Turin and India were different, but despite of those different conditions, they performed here. So how you look, we can say that the perseverance and the endurance of these athletes?
I just look at the resilience of athletes. People with intellectual disabilities overcome challenges every day, challenges that you and I would never even contemplate. So when they come to the sports field and they're able to do that, I think it's a natural thing for us to see what we're seeing here.
The way Special Olympic Bharat is doing for these athletes in India, and we saw that in every school, in maximum school in Delhi and all over India, we saw there are a center of excellence so that they can come, these athletes can come and practice there. So how you look this initiative to promote the philosophy of inclusion in India?
Well, when you're looking at the centres that we're talking about, we're looking at bringing sport to people that have never had a chance, and we're doing it in local communities. Now, for me, Special Olympics stands for grassroots sport, people who want to play, giving them a chance to play. If you can do that, then you're really changing the environment in which they live. So, yeah, for me, India as always is taking a pioneering role in that, and I'm really appreciative of the role that they play, not only in the region but across the world.
Definitely, the way things are going and things are happening, not only in other countries but India too, the way Special Olympic Bharat is working, definitely days are not far when the society will, we can say that, will accept this mission of inclusion and the mission of bringing all the people under one umbrella. With camera person Satyanarayan, Narayan Singh, Duty India, Turin.
And USA floorball team coach Joe praised the Special Olympics World Winter Games as a remarkable event for special athletes. In an exclusive chat with DD India's Narayan, he said their performances will play a key role in promoting inclusivity in society.
The Special Olympic World Winter Games in Turin are examples of, we can say that, inclusion. And right now I'm joined by the US team who won a bronze medal in the floorball unified event. The coach Joe is one. Sir, how you look these games? They are uniting the world through the mission of inclusion.
I think it's working really well. It was a good tournament. We met a lot of different athletes from different countries, and it was great to learn about other people, which is pretty much the start of inclusion. You can't include someone if you don't know anything about their culture, and this helps a lot.
We have the player of US also. They also won the bronze medal. So, did you enjoy the event here, winning the bronze medal for your country?
It's an absolutely unbelievable feeling to be here and not only represent our country back home in the United States, but to do it with some of the best teammates that I've ever played alongside with. It's truly a lifetime moment that we're going to carry with us in our hearts forever.
Definitely a lifetime experience for these athletes. So, what are the memories you will take back from here to your home?
Oh man, from opening ceremonies all the way till now and everything in between. It was an amazing experience, and I would do it 100 times over with these guys again.
For coming here and interacting with the teams of other players, share your experience with us.
With interacting with the teams, just making new friends, making camaraderie and everything. You can't get better than that. You honestly can't get better than that. You can't get anywhere in the world other than in Special Olympics itself.
Definitely the athletes are enjoying. Sir, talking about the unified thing, definitely this is a great starting point, and the way the athletes from all over the world are participating here and presenting an example of inclusion and bringing all under one umbrella. This is a unique initiative, hoping that this mission will continue. With camera person Satyanarayan, Narayan Singh, DD India, Turin.
And the 18th Asian Film Awards held on March 16 celebrated the brilliance of Indian cinema. Payal Kapadia's All We Imagine as Light claims the prestigious Best Film Award, while Shahana Goswami's powerful performance in Santosh earned her the Best Actress accolade, marking a triumphant moment for Indian talent. Directed by Sandhya Suri, Santosh also secured the Best New Director award, showcasing India's storytelling prowess. Held in Hong Kong, the award spotlighted 30 films from 25 countries, with Indian entries standing tall. The event, established by the Busan, Hong Kong and Tokyo Film Festivals, continues to honor Asian cinematic excellence and foster regional collaboration. Well, that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour, but do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Sheikh Mahajan. From all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.